Hello, Meoni here, and welcome back to another news video. This time we're covering some of the latest interviews that come out of the live letter, and of course all about 5.3 and onwards. A lot of the press have had access to Naoki Yoshida, the producer and director for Final Fantasy XIV, and managed to hit them pretty hard with some really good questions. One of the interviews that I really like is Gamespot's interview. Of course, I have nothing to do with this. This is all thanks to the author is Michael Hingham. You can check out this particular article in the link in the description of this video. Please go and give them some love, give them some clicks. I personally think this is pretty good. I really enjoyed reading this one earlier. So go check this out. Links in the description. I have nothing to do with it. So yes, they got to sit down with Yoshi P and ask some really cool questions. A lot of these are like storyline related. There's lots of big answers from Yoshi P, which is quite nice to see. So let's just read through this. So Michael says, we know that Reflections in Crystal, the 5.3 update, is concluding the Shadowbringers Ark. Can you speak more broadly to how you're transitioning from Shadowbringers and leading players into what's next for the story? Yoshi P says, as you're aware, we've done 3 expansions at this point now, Heavensward, Stormblood, and Shadowbringers, and with the previous 3.3 and 4.3 patches, we depicted the conclusion of each of those corresponding story arcs. But of course, with the Shadowbringers storyline, the stage is in a completely different realm. It is a departure or a goodbye that we'll be saying to that story, and because we are very thorough in depicting that aspect of it, I think you will feel that sense of conclusion for sure. In Shadowbringers, there is a secondary theme that the team had in mind, which was to reintroduce the members of the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, our heroes. Players got that feeling of having these characters as your allies, properly joining forces with them as the Warrior of Darkness. Through the narrative, the team definitely paid extra attention to depicting the way the Scions live, they think, and face certain problems within their travels. By departing from the first, and with each of those members of the Scions saying their goodbyes, we're definitely depicting those moments very thoroughly as well. Of course, that will make the volume of content really hefty. It is going to be pretty long, so we encourage players to enjoy it. Take your time to get through it and experience that conclusion, and see how each of these characters say their goodbyes. At the same time, yes, as you mentioned, we will be transitioning into the next storyline. That's going to be presented like boom at the end. We hope that the first day of the patch launches, players would first take the time to play through that main scenario. Oh, very, very hyped indeed. And we have a picture here of his Warrior of Light there, the writers here, and Y'shtola there in the Ronken storyline. So the next question, are we going to be in Garlemald soon? We've seen a little bit of it in the story moments with Estinian and Gaius, but are we going to start seeing more and actually going there? Very good question. That's on the tip of everyone's mouth at the moment. Are we going to Garlemald in the next expansion? Interesting answer coming up. In that aspect, I think we'll be able to go against players' expectations in a good way. Content that's coming in the patch 5.3 series. There's the Sorrow of Werlight, the latest installment in the weapon series, where you're actually fighting against the forces of the Garlean Empire. In Save the Queen, the Bosnian Southern Front is an upcoming instance that really touches upon the Garlean Empire. Of course, it's not quite the main story, but it's a pretty significant story. By playing through this content, it will arouse that curiosity in players like, what's going to happen next? So in addition to the main scenario, I think those 2 playable pieces of content will definitely be something to look out for. The key point then in this is where he said going against player expectations. That could be a red herring trying to throw you off, or it could be the fact that they're going to be doing the Garlean Empire stuff with this series rather than going there next. He didn't really answer the question, which is, obvious really. You're not going to answer it, are you, in an interview like this, unfortunately. But that's an interesting response, how they're providing a lot of that sort of backstory for the Garlemald content that might not be as soon as we'd like, maybe? I don't know. Do you want a Golem mod expansion? I don't know if I do yet, actually. I would like to see probably the moon, personally. So the next question, he says, this next question has to do with the end of Shadowbringers, where the Crystal X Ark calls in heroes from other realms. My impression is that this is going to have major implications for where the story will go. Can you speak to whether or not you're going to be playing on the same theme anytime soon, or if that's going to have implications as we make it to the next expansion? Really, really good follow-up question. Really making use of these question time. With that scene in Shadowbringers, Yoshi P says, where you have those 7 other heroes called in to surround the player in that scene, it's actually a theme that has existed since A Realm Reborn. People have been asking, who are these 7 people beside me? The development team was thinking, well, maybe we should come up with an answer. But we made it so that the players can still use their imagination on theories about who and what these heroes are. We still want to have players speculate, first of all. They love speculation. Then there's another aspect of people speculating or wondering, because it has been a mystery, who is the Warrior of Light, him or herself, their player? The Warrior of Light and their identity, or who they are, is not clear either. So that's something that we want to take another step into, just shedding a little bit of light, so to speak. Maybe give that glimpse of, oh, perhaps could it be this or that? And dig a little deeper into the true nature of the Warrior of Light. So that's another thing to be looking out for, end quote. So the further speculation that we might be an Ascian kind of looks kind of true. I don't know. I love speculating on this game. I think most of you do too. So the next question. Leading into Shadowbringers, you told people to play the Crystal Tower raid series, and with the new patch, it'll be required. Is there any other piece of content that you can point out to players that they should play in anticipation of what's coming next, like what you did with Crystal Tower and Shadowbringers? Yoshi P says, having the Crystal Tower as part of the required content for Shadowbringers, it's something that the team was torn on, and I had to think about whether or not we really want to put this in there. But just the fact that the narrative tied in so closely to the main scenario, it was such a core element of the story. And plus, it's not a very difficult dungeon to get through. That's why for Shadowbringers, we felt it was okay to have it tied into the main scenario. Now, other than that, all of the content is created so that they connect with each other no matter when you play it. It doesn't matter at what timing you tackle any content within Final Fantasy XIV. But specifically speaking, for if you've already finished Shadowbringers, then go to the Interdimensional Rift for all the Omega raids, and then do the Alexander raid series. You might see the connections between different elements you play through and in the story. Conversely, sometimes you do some of the raids first and then connect to the main story, and you see that the narrative actually flows naturally into each other. We made it so that you can tackle it from whichever side you please. We don't intend on specifying certain content to be mandatory before getting into certain parts of the story, but again, I think it might be nice to go through the Alexander and Omega raids. You don't have to do the Savage content, but maybe having those two under your belt may help with getting the gist of having a much richer understanding and enjoyment of the overall world and lore. Oh, and of course, you can totally take your time on this, but it might be a good idea to get a refresher on Heavensward. So there we go. That's a very interesting bit. Massive section of an answer. So, Interdimensional Rift and Alexander. So, otherworldly stuff from other worlds based on folklore, time travel. Heavensward, the dragons are actually originally from a distant star, right? Not born of Hydaelyn or anything like that. Lots of implications. Time travel bit is probably tied into Grahatir. That would make sense with the whole story to do with Crystal Tower. The Alexander series directly, though, if it was anything other than time travel, I'm not sure. Heavensward, oh, it's such a good piece of speculation stuff. I love it when they do this. Anyway, let me know what you think about that bit. So next up we have, since we've had some time with the Crystal X Ark, he's become many players' favorite character, myself included. Tell me about what it was like to create the Crystal X Ark and what made you want to make him such an endearing, lovely character. Yoshi says, when we were creating the Crystal Tower content as the Alliance raid way back then, we never imagined we were going to use this character in such a storyline, and we didn't have it planned at that time. So we had this character of Grahatir seal off the Crystal Tower with his blood, and he mentions how he will sleep within the tower until the Crystal Tower could be used for a much greater purpose. We had thought the character arc ended, and we closed it off at this point. There were considerations and discussions that if there were a case where we had to reset Final Fantasy XIV in our expanding of the game and whatnot, whether we would reuse this character or not. But nothing was really set in stone. When we were depicting Grahatir, he was just this young man who was so enamored by the thought of adventure, having such reverence for the hero, the warrior of light. He expresses how much he wanted to be one himself, and to be an adventurer just like in the stories he read in his youth. Just having the pureness of heart for sure, that's one of the characteristics that really stood out. Once he did go to rest within the Crystal Tower, his popularity became much greater, so years passed and then we were thinking about how we depict the story of Shadowbringers. Of course, with any sort of Final Fantasy XIV content, we want to make sure that this is connected with the rest of the world. So in that process, we thought, oh, maybe we can utilize this concept. I think that this was the impetus for having the Crystal X Ark, but of course his adventure is not concluded just yet. Our players have not seen where the Crystal X Ark goes from here. I have, but we still haven't seen it. Once players do, I think there will be another discovery. So the implications then is that Grahatir might die, and of course we might wake up our Grahatir, because of course the one on the first is kind of a paradox really, isn't it, anyway? So this is an interesting bit. Okay, you got me worried. That's my boy. Please don't hurt my boy. Yoshi says, yeah, he's young at heart, and it's not about romantic feelings, love, or crushing on the warrior of light. It's just very simple and pure. He just wants to go on an adventure alongside your character. He has this straightforward reverence for him or her. That's the personality of the Crystal X Ark and what shapes him. I think that's one of the reasons why players have such an affinity for the Crystal X Ark and just take a liking to him. When we were considering bringing back Grahatir, the team wanted to just tell him, good morning, or just great seeing you, and waking him up again. I hope you do get to see 5.3 with your own eyes, and from the trailer, I'm sure a lot of people will be shouting and screaming, but I mean, just please see it through. The Shadowbringers story is Crystal X Ark's story as well. Yikes. And then we got another one here, unrelated, about the Truss System. So Grahatir might die, but we have our version, right? In theory, that we could wake up. That, I suppose that's going to be some kind of, thing to fall back on, but our version's not going to remember any of those events, are they? And how close we got. That's a little bit sad. So the next question. The Truss System has really helped me connect with a lot of the characters, and now you've had an entire expansion and a set of patches incorporating the Truss System. How do you feel about having to implement it? Are you in a good mode where it's now part of the natural content creation process, or are there still things that you want to tweak? Yoshi says, I think we still have yet to bring it to a level where it can be applied more generally, so to speak. Right now, of course, we have really talented game designers, people with really high-level skill, building these instances. They actually create unique individual moves per instance dungeon for characters, and put different movements and create algorithms for these. Of course, the development team loves the concept of a Truss System, and the people creating these love the story as well, so they really enjoy working on it, which is great. But there's only so many people that can work on creating these Truss Systems to make compatible with dungeons. We would like to evolve the system so that it can be applied to more generally rather, and not have to be a top game designer in order to create these. And maybe to the point where we can look at some of the previous dungeons, like those in A Realm Reborn, such as the Praetorium, or some of those other dungeons to be able to make your to take your NPCs in there. Of course, it's not the easiest of tasks, but it's something that we do want to strive for because we feel that if we are able to accommodate the use of the Trust NPCs in all of the dungeons, I'm sure we'd be in a really great position. I have to completely agree with this. Just end of that discussion there. I think that it's sorely underused, and I think that it is a great tool. The Adventurer Squadron system was fantastic, but the Truss system has added so much more to that. And if they can combine the two together, like they say to do Alliance raids or even Castrum, oh man, I think they would have solved many of the issues that they have at the moment, especially with the MSQ roulette, with the unskippable cutscenes. That could be a thing of the past going forward. But, you know, we'll have to wait and see. But I think the Truss system is incredible. And they really deserve a lot of props for that. It's very unique how it is in our game. The next question then. I have to ask about something that my free company wants to know, and I wanted to give him a shout out. The Giant Bomb Vinco Free Company on Ultros. That's my squad, he says. What I learnt is that they're all about glamour. So 2 questions. Are there any changes that you're looking at or want to make in terms of refining the glamour system? Thank you for asking this. So good. And also, considering the controversy around the 2B outfit and the size of players' butts, is there going to be a butt size slider? This guy's awesome. You're on point, Michael. Thank you for these questions. So to answer your first question, and this might not necessarily be the glamour system per se, but we do want to expand upon the options for people who want to roleplay within the game. For example, you may recall the umbrella being implemented. We want to expand upon the fashion item category, like having a stuffed animal that the player can carry around, or a tray they can hold. Oh, very cool. We could be a waiter or a maid. But just having that extra thing your player character can do as part of the role-playing in the game, just decorating yourself or having those add-on elements to enjoy that element of role-play more, we do intend on expanding on that some more. And before I answer your second question, there's one thing we want to say, and that you all really like butts, don't you? Yoshi P, come on, everybody loves a good butt. Come on, let's be honest. To be completely honest, he says, and I'm sure you're aware of this, when we were looking at 2B's costume, there were bugs, so to speak. Of course, the bottom, has been modeled to be slightly bigger than normal. And when you saw some clipping whenever you would use the sit emote, or when the character posed in certain ways with the 2B costume, we thought it's just that one single thing, so that's fine. We'd moved forward with trying to depict it accurately, so to speak. But if we were to have a slider where all of our players would have the option to enlarge their behind, we would have to look at all of our equipment, which there are thousands of in-game. We would have to remake each one because we have to anticipate some people might slide their butt slider all the way to maximum, and trying to accommodate for that is physically impossible unless we implemented this physics simulation so that the model of the fabric wouldn't overlap with the model of the behind. I mean, considering how many people are rendered on screen at the same time, with this being an MMORPG, it's crazy. It's not feasible. Maybe perhaps if everyone's hardware and the specs or the processing power goes up, or if we had hypothetically revamped our graphics engine, it might not be impossible. But unless we do that, I think it's quite difficult to accommodate. Again, it's not impossible, but if asked when it's coming, we don't know. He says, of course. So, I mean, there is one thing I do want to ask you guys. People clamor about the butt slider, but what if our current state would be the maximum size and the slider adjusts your butt to be smaller? Would people want that or not? The interviewer replies, no. And he says, that's not right? People just want to make it larger, right? And the interviewer replies, yes, I'm sorry. Listen, my character is a ninja and a monk. We use a lot of leg power with our attack rotation, so it only makes sense that we have stronger glutes. I love that explanation. So good. There is another point Yoshi P says that we wanted to make. If you do adjust the butt size to be larger, it will naturally affect the way the character walks. And with 14 and how thorough we are with rendering those these graphics, it would be weird to see a adjusted butt size not affecting the way the characters walk. Again, it might be well into the future, but hopefully maybe it will be nice to have it come true. I mean, only if Final Fantasy XIV continues to grow and more people come to play. So for the butt slider, let's bring in more people and play more. And that's the end of the interview. So I didn't expect there to be a bit on the end originally all about butt sliders, but of course it had to be asked. And we've actually got an answer. Quite an amazing, humorous answer. Yoshi P has really gone out on this one. He obviously wasn't feeling too tired. He's had this question before, but shrugged it off. But there we go. Do people want smaller butts? I don't know. I know plenty of people that would turn it all the way up to maximum myself. There's plenty of people on my Discord that already do that with third-party stuff, so... Oh, dear. The idea of more glamour stuff, though, roleplay stuff is always good. But yeah, what a fantastic interview. Thank you so much to you, Michael. There he is at the top there, Michael Higham, sorry. A link will be in the description for this GameSpot article. What do you think? Are you happy with your butt? Are you happy with your butt size? Do you want bigger butts? Do you want the 2B leggings to be the default size for your butt? Let Yoshi P know, I guess. Really good interview. Thank you so much for uploading this public domain. It's so cool to read this. And yeah, I take no credit for this myself, but I had to read it. It was that good and very entertaining. There's some really good points there, especially with Graha Tier and the storyline. I'm really looking forward to 5.3 now, Reflections in Crystal, and hopefully you are too. And interviews like this they just pour more fuel on the fire for me and get me even more hyped. So anyway, let me know what you think about this interview. Check out the description to go and check this out yourself, and check out the trailer when you can. It's absolutely amazing. And I'll see you all next time.